In the soft hum of a 1950s morning, housewives tied their aprons, preparing breakfast as the smell of bacon and fresh coffee filled the kitchen. Radios played tunes from Perry Como or Elvis, while children raced to finish their cereal, shaped like stars or loops, before the school bell rang. Sunlight filtered through lace curtains, glinting off chrome toasters and Formica countertops. Everything had a rhythm, a predictable comfort, and even the clinking of dishes felt like part of the daily melody. That era wasn't just a time, it was a feeling, warm and steady like the first sip of morning coffee. Sunday mornings echoed with the sound of church bells. Families dressed in their best, hats, gloves, polished shoes, and walked together to wooden pews. Choirs sang hymns, sun streaming through stained glass, and the smell of old hymnals lingered in the air. After service, potlucks and friendly chats stretched into the afternoon. It wasn't just about faith, it was about fellowship and the joy of shared quiet moments. Summer nights in the 1950s had their own kind of magic. You'd run barefoot through the yard, chasing fireflies, cupping them like tiny lanterns in your hands. Porch swings creaked as families sat together, sipping lemonade from sweating glass jars. Radios played softly in the background, maybe Elvis or Frank Sinatra, and neighbors strolled by, waving without hurry. The air smelled like cut grass and barbecue smoke, and the only screen you stared at was the sky, full of stars. No apps, no noise, just the hum of a box fan in the window and the slow, sweet fade of a perfect summer day.
Drive-in theaters brought the stars closer. Families parked under starlit skies, speakers hanging from car windows as cartoons played before the main film. Popcorn smells mixed with summer air, and kids wore pajamas in the back seat, drifting off before the ending. Couples cuddled in convertibles, watching epic romances or sci-fi thrillers flicker across giant screens. The night wasn't about the movie. It was about being together under the open sky.
Christmas felt like magic. Handmade ornaments, tinsel trees, and stockings hung with care. Snow blanketed the yard, and kids stared out frosted windows waiting for Santa. The scent of pine, cinnamon, and wood smoke filled the air. Gifts weren't about size, they were about love, wrapped in colorful paper with big bows. Those moments lingered like snowflakes, soft, fleeting, but unforgettable. Summers felt endless in the 50s. Kids ran barefoot through sprinklers, chased ice cream trucks down hot pavement, and caught fireflies in mason jars at dusk. The air smelled of fresh-cut grass, charcoal grills, and sweet lemonade. Porch swings creaked under the weight of quiet conversations, while transistor radios hummed Elvis tunes in the background. Time didn't fly, it strolled lazily, each day a canvas of sunlit joy, laughter, and sticky popsicle fingers. Milk was delivered to your door in glass bottles. Early mornings began with the clink of bottles on porches, a friendly wave from the milkman, and fresh dairy waiting in metal crates. No grocery run, no plastic cartons, just cold, creamy milk straight from the source. It was more than convenience, it was trust, a familiar face starting your day with something simple and good. Saturday matinees meant cartoon shorts and cowboy heroes. Kids lined up with pocket change, bought tickets at box offices, and cheered in dim theaters as Bugs Bunny or Roy Rogers filled the screen. Seats were sticky, popcorn flew through the air, and laughter echoed in the darkness. For a quarter, you got 2 hours of magic, and the memory lasted a lifetime. Penny candy stores were treasure troves. Glass jars lined the counters, filled with licorice, jawbreakers, and gumdrops. Kids clutched coins, pointing and debating what to buy with their precious dimes. The bell above the door jingled constantly, and the shopkeeper knew every face and every favorite treat. It wasn't about the candy. It was about the ritual, the freedom to choose, and the thrill of a sugary reward. Laundry was a community affair. Clotheslines stretched across backyards, white sheets fluttered in the breeze, and wooden clothespins clicked into place. Neighbors chatted over fences while the sun did the drying. Wash days meant hard work, but also connection, shared tips, borrowed detergent, and the satisfaction of crisp, sun-dried linens. The corner drugstore was more than medicine. Soda fountains served root beer floats, teens spun on stools, and comic books filled racks by the register. The pharmacist knew your name, and you could buy everything from aspirin to chewing gum in one stop. It was a hub, a place where news traveled, friends gathered, and life slowed down over fizzy drinks and small talk.
Front yards were stages for imagination. Cardboard boxes became rocket ships, sticks turned into swords, and sprinklers morphed into rainstorms. Kids didn't need screens. They had the world at their fingertips and endless creativity. Laughter echoed from every corner, and scraped knees were badges of honor, proof of a day well spent in the great outdoors. Fall brought golden leaves, crisp air, and the smell of burning wood. Kids raked leaves into giant piles, only to leap in moments later, laughing as leaves scattered again. Jackets came out, school began anew, and the promise of Halloween stirred excitement. Every breeze carried change, and every sunset painted the world in amber tones, a final gift before winter's hush. Every living room had a console radio, a centerpiece of evening entertainment. Families would gather after supper, dim the lights, and tune in to programs like The Lone Ranger or Fibber McGee and Molly. Kids sat cross-legged on the carpet, eyes wide, letting their imagination paint pictures from the voices and sounds crackling through the speaker. Mom might knit, Dad smoked a pipe, and everyone leaned in when the suspense built. The news came on at the top of the hour, with the confident voice of a broadcaster delivering headlines from faraway places. Even in times of war or uncertainty, the radio offered connection and comfort. It was a shared experience, one that brought families closer without a single screen in sight. Television was an event. Families gathered around black and white sets, adjusting antennas to catch I Love Lucy or The Ed Sullivan Show. Kids sat cross-legged on shag rugs, eyes wide as cowboys rode across tiny screens. Commercials for soap and cigarettes played between the laughter and drama, and no one reached for a remote. It was all about being together, not flipping channels. The living room glowed with soft light, laughter, and the magic of simpler storytelling. Neighborhoods buzzed with life. Kids played hopscotch on sidewalks, rode banana seat bicycles, and traded baseball cards under shady trees. Parents waved from porches, sipping iced tea as the ice clinked in tall glasses. Streetlights flickered on at dusk, signaling the end of playtime, and the distant call of "Come inside!" echoed down the block. The community felt close, like a giant family where everyone knew your name and your dogs too. School days had a rhythm of their own. Children walked in tidy lines, lunchboxes in hand, decorated with cowboys, astronauts, or cartoon characters. Chalkboards squeaked, and the smell of sharpened pencils filled the air. Teachers wore skirts or slacks, and discipline came with a ruler's tap or a stern look. Recess was freedom, with jump ropes snapping, kickballs flying, and laughter bouncing off brick walls. Learning felt like a shared adventure, not a race. Grocery shopping was a weekly ritual. Mom pushed the cart down narrow aisles, checking lists written in careful cursive. Shelves lined with canned goods, glass milk bottles, and colorful cereal boxes felt like a treasure trove. The butcher knew your name, and the cashier rang up each item by hand. Kids begged for bubble gum or a toy from the 5-cent bin, and no one left without a friendly "see you next week."
Trips to the barber shop were a ritual. Red and white barber poles spun outside as men read newspapers and swapped stories inside. Boys squirmed in chairs as clippers buzzed, earning lollipops for sitting still. The smell of shaving cream and aftershave lingered in the air, while the steady snip of scissors set a calming rhythm. It wasn't just a haircut, it was a rite of passage, a moment shared across generations. Evenings ended with bedtime stories. Parents sat at bedside, reading by lamplight as kids listened wide-eyed. Classic tales came alive through gentle voices, turning bedrooms into forests, castles, or distant planets. The final words were always the same: a kiss goodnight, a whispered sweet dreams, and the soft pull of blankets under chins. It was the safest feeling in the world. Sunday mornings were sacred, not just in church, but around the breakfast table. The smell of bacon sizzling, coffee percolating, and fresh biscuits baking filled every room. Families gathered, not rushed or distracted, but present. The morning paper lay neatly folded, dads in suspenders read headlines aloud, while moms poured syrup over stacks of pancakes. Children, still in pajamas, listened wide-eyed as stories from the Bible or family history were shared. After breakfast, it was time to dress in your Sunday best. Starched shirts, polished shoes, and little white gloves for the girls. The church bell rang out across town, and folks walked together down the lane, greeting neighbors with a nod or a handshake. There was comfort in tradition, in the ritual of starting the week with faith, family, and a shared meal. There was a time when every small American town had a corner store, and that corner store felt like the heartbeat of the neighborhood. Wooden floors creaked under your feet, a brass bell chimed as you walked in, and the air smelled of fresh bread, penny candy, and tobacco. Kids clutched nickels in sweaty palms, debating whether to get a glass bottle of cola or a small paper bag filled with licorice, jawbreakers, and taffy. Behind the counter, Mr. Jenkins, who knew everyone by name, offered a smile and maybe a free treat if you did well in school. Back then, it wasn't just about buying something. It was about connection, community, and the quiet rhythm of daily life that felt simple yet rich. Summertime meant fireflies at dusk and the hum of cicadas in the distance. Children raced barefoot down gravel roads, chasing each other with jars in hand, trying to catch glowing insects to keep by their bedside. Screen doors slammed shut behind moms calling kids in for supper. Backyards smelled of grilled hot dogs and charcoal smoke, while the radio played Elvis or Patsy Cline through open kitchen windows. It was the kind of summer where time stretched endlessly, and the only worry was skinned knees or melting popsicles. Fathers fixed lawn chairs, moms served lemonade, and neighbors dropped by just to sit a while on the porch. It wasn't about entertainment. It was about being together, outside, in the warmth of the fading sun.
Saturdays were for Main Street. Men polished their cars, Chevys, Buicks, and Fords gleaming in the sun before piling the family in for a trip to the diner. Neon signs buzzed, jukeboxes played rock and roll, and waitresses in pastel uniforms served root beer floats. Kids leaned over counters, watching milkshakes being mixed, while outside, teenagers circled the block, showing off their rides. The town moved in slow motion, savoring every moment, every bite,
every note from the jukebox. Time wasn't money back then, it was memories in the making. Back in the 1950s, school mornings started with the smell of chalk and the clatter of lunchboxes. You'd walk in, hang your coat on a hook, and slide into a wooden desk with an inkwell no one used anymore. The blackboard ruled the room, and every day began with the Pledge of Allegiance, hand over heart, eyes on the flag. Teachers had no microphones, just a firm voice and a wooden pointer that meant business. Recess wasn't a luxury, it was freedom. Kickball, marbles, and hopscotch, all before the bell called you back inside. And somehow that old school smell, books, crayons, and peanut butter, stayed with you forever.